Okay. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the Kent City Council Committee as a whole. Today is Tuesday, July 16th. We're going to get started here. First, I am going to ask Kim to do a roll call, please.
Thank you. Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Council President Corr. Councilmember Boyd.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Troutner.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, next item will be item number 3. Pat, any changes to the agenda, sir?
No changes.
Councilmember, any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, can I ask for a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Not all go at one time. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, let the record show unanimous pass. We're going to move on to operation, and I will be doing the operation of the department presentation. First thing, we have the approval of the minutes from July 2nd. Ask for a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, let the record show unanimous pass. We'll move on to item 4B, payment of the bills. A motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the bills. Second.
Motion and a slow second.
Okay.
Hey, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, let the record show unanimous pass. We're going to move on to ordinance amendment 3.18 and 3.29 of the Kent City Code. And Ms. Paula Painter, Finance Director.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Paula Painter. I'm the Finance Director, and in front of you today is an ordinance that'll amend Kent City Code chapters 3.18 and 3.29. The code 3.18, that governs our utility taxes, so all the telephone, gas, electric, solid waste, water, sewer, drainage. And then 3.29, that addresses the administrative provisions of our tax code. So currently, our utility tax code 3.18 specifically states in there that utility taxes will be paid monthly. The 3.29 tax provision calls for quarterly payments or as directed by the finance director. And right now, what we're finding is in our utility tax, particularly our telephone utility taxes, we are seeing itty-bitty checks coming in every single month from companies. That's a huge burden, not only to our taxpayers, but also to staff here at the city who have to receipt them. I found it very interesting when I looked up some data from last year. We had 100 deposits of checks that came in for less than $1. That impacted 25 of our businesses that are having to issue a check for really pennies, 75 cents. An additional 150 checks came in for less than $5, impacting another 25 of our businesses. And really, when you start looking at that burden, it's not really worth the effort. It doesn't make a big difference whether we receive those every single month or we take those and receive those on an annual basis. So one of the things that we would be doing with this ordinance is eliminating the administrative section of the Kent City Code 3.18001. So then we're not eliminating that. We're going to keep that one. That one will point them to the Kent City Code 3.29 that gives us that authority to file. We'll move taxpayers to the quarterly basis as a default. However, in order for cash flow purposes, any business that is owing more than $100,000 a month needs to continue paying monthly. We have like a handful of those businesses that will need to continue paying monthly. Those that owe under $1,000, they'll be moved to annually, and then everyone else is on quarterly. One of the great things about doing this change now is we are working to be able to make filing utility taxes online possible. Currently, businesses can go in on a quarterly basis and pay their B&O taxes online. Now they would be able to do both of those at the same time in the same portal. So we're really excited about that change, and so by implementing this, we'll be able to roll that out effective the portal, at least, effective January 1. And also the change in reporting requirement will be January 1, 2025. In addition, we'll be making a slight change to the Kent City Code 3.29 and adding a section to 3.29.210, which, although in general tax information is confidential and to be held confidential with only certain circumstances when we can share them, what we do find is there's a need to be able to collect money from businesses who don't necessarily want to pay their taxes. This amendment will add language that will allow us for collection purposes to share the tax returns with the collection agency in order to be able to have some assistance in collecting those funds. Right now, when we look at some of our older accounts, we have 25 taxpayers that are over 90 days past due, totaling $197,000. We have some of that in bankruptcy, which we can't really do much about. Some of that, they're on payment plans, so thank you to them for making this effort to get these bills paid, but there's still $87,000 out there that we're trying to get movement and payment on, and this will assist us with that. I would be happy to take any questions if you have them.
Quick, I know we would want, sometimes we have the, I guess you call it, is a tax collector to go out and collect money. Will this fall in the category for people who don't pay, or that's something totally different? Because
No, that's something totally different. So we do have auditors here on site who do work with trying to get collections from our businesses out here. We do contact them, we engage with them, but sometimes you need a little bit more to be able to do this. This would allow us to use our current collection agency, Alliance One, to be able to help with some of that effort as well.
And my last question, so once you go automated, you say you can do it online with utility. So if I owe 75 cents, can I still pay that online, or do I need to wait till the end of the year to do that on those small?
For the small amounts, we would say that's going to be effective January 1, and if all you owe 75 cents, then you would be on an annual basis just to pay it once a year.
Okay, you don't have to do it.
You won't have to do it every quarter, every month.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, 1 second. Okay, we're going to go with Councilmember Fincher, followed by Boyd, please.
Thank you. So how will notification be made to the customers to let them know that there's going to be this change? I know that they're going to get a bill with a date on it, but.
Yes. That's a very good question. I know right now our tax division is working on letters to be able to let them know, especially those that are being impacted, that this exists. We'll also work on some other communications to make sure that it's out there and on our website as well.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Councilmember Boyd.
Yeah, I just want to know, Paula, would it be late fees for these or what?
Yes, there are late fees associated with that.
And are the late fees, are there increments like 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, or
They're
just one late fee?
calculated based on the time, from the time that they were due until the actual payment is made.
And we don't know how much that amount is, I mean, percentage-wise?
For what the city of Kent assesses,
Yes.
I'll have to have you come on up. I'm going to turn to my tax manager. This
Okay.
is Andrea
Andrea, come up,
Madsen.
please.
She's the tax
Hey, Andrea.
manager, and I'll have her come up and answer those questions. Thank you.
Thank you, council members. So I'm the tax division manager, Andrea Madsen. So we have a penalty, if they're 30 days late, there is a 9% penalty, 30 more days, 19%, and then 30 days after that, it goes to, and maxes out at 29% penalty.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Teamwork. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other question? Let's see here. I don't have any more. Are we good?
I have one more.
Okay.
So is there also a fee from the agency in addition to that, or their portion comes out of that 29% max?
I believe their portion comes out of that 29%, or comes out of whatever amount is owed to us.
Are you good, Councilmember Boyd? Okay, good. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion if there's no more question. Okay. Make a motion to move to adopt ordinance number 4495, amending the Kent City Code to align utility tax filing frequency with other city taxes and to clarify that tax information may be disclosed for collection purpose.
So moved.
How about a second? Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed. Thank you, finance team. Okay. We're going to move on to item 4D. We don't get to see Elena too much, but come give us some good news about an insurance program update.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Elaine Wee, Risk Manager for the City of Kent. I'm here today to update you on the city's insurance policies that renewed on July 1st, which include property, crime and fidelity, and drones, also known as unmanned aircrafts. So the key elements of the property renewal, which I'll go over in the next several slides, are first, there was an increase to the premium this year. However, the coverage and policy limits remain the same. There was a slight change in the different companies or combination of companies that maintain the different layers of coverage, but the coverage remains the same. So the history of property insurance premiums with the city, as most of you know, procuring insurance for jurisdictions such as Kent is costly. Last year's renewal was very difficult and more expensive than any years past. There was a 29% increase to the rate and a 34% increase to the premium overall. This year, the premium increased only 2%, which is good news. There was actually a rate reduction of about 5.6%, but the city's insurable values went up this year about 8.65 as opposed to 6% last year. And that's because we had a lot of improvement to the parks, as well as improvements to stormwater pump stations such as Green River South, Washington Avenue, and Horseshoe Bend. The increase also takes into account the average increase we include for property appreciation, which is based on the CPI. So, finance budgeted for a higher increase in this year's premium, so there was a budget savings of approximately $130,000 for 2024. Yes, which is very good news. So, Alliant provided this graphic from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA, which illustrates the number of catastrophic events that have occurred from 1980 to 2024. You may have seen over the years different variations of this graphic. As you can see, for 2024, the number one event that leads to billions of dollars of insurance claims continues to be severe storms. This graphic was updated in early May, so the numbers for 2024 continue to grow and change. The good news is, as you can see last year, at this time, renewals were averaging between 25 to 28% increases. For the city, we were on the higher end of this average at 29%. The city was part of the 50% of consumers whose premiums were within that range. From late 2023 through March of this year, you'll see that the average premium cost has been trending downward. The City of Kent is part of the 39% of consumers whose premium decreased between 1% and 9%. So I'm hopeful that this is indicative of a stabilizing market, but with insurance, we shall see. So the property program structure, this compares last year's and this year's structure. Some of you are familiar with these graphics and have seen them over the years. The city continues to maintain $150 million of insurance, earthquake and flood insurance up to $25 million, and they have flood coverage for a small portion behind Showware Center for up to $5 million. So deductibles remain the same. The only thing that has changed is that there's a different combination of companies maintaining that first $25 million of coverage. And in the memo that was with the agenda, it's easier to see based on that spreadsheet what the change in the combination was. So other renewals that happened for this period is for crime and fidelity, which had less than a 1% increase. And then the drone increase had zero, or drone policy had zero increase. Policy limits and deductibles remain the same. I think we lost a drone from last year because there was an incident with the PD, but overall everything has remained the same for both. It was during the freeze, the deep freeze. Yes. So looking ahead, in 2019, my predecessor, Chris Hills, performed a citywide property appraisal for all city buildings and structures and specialty structures. Alliance advised that we should do this appraisal again within the next 2 to 3 years. So that will be on the horizon. Liability renewals will take place January 1st, so I'll be back at that time. And then we'll begin that process in August. At that time, excess liability, excess workers' comp, and cyber risk will renew. So I can take any questions now.
Thank you. Was the police chief flying the drone at the time? Do we know?
It was not him.
Not too sure. Okay. All right. All right. This is good news.
Yes.
Getting better.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Council member, we got questions here. Let's see. Councilmember Boyd? Oh, that's last. Okay. Are we good? Information only. So thank you. Look forward to hearing the next report. So hopefully things is, like you say, trending in the right direction. So
Thank you.
thank you very much. Okay, team, we're going to move on to our economic and community development, and Councilmember Larmer.
Thank you, Chair. Tonight we have two presentations, both by Bill Ellis, and both requiring action. So we're going to start first with a resolution supporting the Mill Creek Middle School Stormwater Improvement Project.
Hi, good afternoon, council members. I actually was here at Committee of the Whole on July 2nd, and I provided a much more in-depth presentation that I plan to give today. Info only on the second, today action. We're carrying forward a resolution, a motion of support to the gathering grant application we're making with the Kent School District and with the CBOs we listed, Mother Africa, Central Red Dew, ANEW, and World Relief. And so this is a resolution showing that we support this grant application. It's a legislative action to just show that we are in favor of this grant and what it will entail. So I'm asking today for an action to support, asking EPA for funding to fix the field.
Great. Any questions on this one? Anything?
I think Bill broke a record.
No, I know.
What's going on here?
Okay, if there's no questions, I'll read the motion. I move to adopt Resolution 2074 to support the Mill Creek Middle School Stormwater Improvement Project and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, any discussion? My bad. All those okay, any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Bill. Okay, so the second one is the ARPA grant agreement with the Kent School District.
Yes, this is also I presented on July 2nd, info only, more in depth again on July 2nd Committee of the Whole. I enumerated the uses of the $460,000 that we would spend with Kent School District on achieving implementation tasks. In your packet, we presented the larger plan as well as the deliverables and sub-buckets that we're looking to invest in, including professional development, additional clubs and challenges in the after-school hours at select schools, and additional funding towards positioning the school for Core Plus and other types of curriculum. So I'm looking for action today to authorize us to take forward that grant contract of American ARPA, American Recovery Protection Act monies to Kent School District.
Okay, any questions? Okay, with that, I'll read the motion. I move to authorize the mayor to sign an ARPA grant agreement with the Kent School Districts in the amount not to exceed $460,000, subject to final terms acceptable to the Economic and Community Development Director and City Attorney.
I second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Larmer. We're going to move on to our parts, and Councilmember Michelle.
Thank you, Council President. We just have one item tonight, and we have Nate Harper here to talk about the renovations at the courtroom.
Thank you, council members. My name is Nate Harper. I am the Capital Projects Manager for Facilities Division, as well as the Acting Superintendent for the Facilities Division right now. Thanks for having me here to address a recent change order we have on one of our projects. Understanding that it's not a regular thing to bring this to the council for a change order, I'd like to give a brief description of why we're here tonight. Back in November of 2023, we entered into a contract with LBC Construction for the renovation of 4 of our municipal courtrooms. At the time, our bid was favorable enough that we were able to do some additional renovations to our courtrooms. But unfortunately, later we discovered that we had some unforeseen conditions to the electrical systems under the concrete in the building, which we had to then redesign the under carpet system for the courtrooms. This came at a higher cost than we expected, and we handled that on another change order. Now nearing the end of the project, this final change order has now put us past the threshold of our signing authority for change orders at the director level. I have a few slides up here that just shows the renovations that we've done, showing the 4 courtrooms. 2 of the courtrooms were opened on May 17th, and we plan on opening the final 2 courtrooms on July 29th, with everything going as planned. We'll be completing the project shortly after punch lists and closeout items. The current change order covers additional labor and project supervision to stain the benches in the courtrooms, which was an additional cost to the original work of just refinishing them. As is, we felt it better for the upgrade of the courtroom to match the existing new casework. This change order amount is $18,529.18 plus Washington State sales tax. There's a few more pictures there for them. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Nate, can you tell us where this money is coming from? For this?
This money is coming from the budget which municipal court gave us. I believe is from the Criminal Justice Fund.
And go ahead.
Are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this the first change order we have in this project since we
No,
started?
it is not. The prior change orders were for cosmetic upgrades, being we had an extra fund balance, and the largest change order was from the electrical upgrades that we found later that were under the concrete floor. Although the change order was at a higher cost than wanted, it was cheaper than saw cutting the floor and redoing all the conduits underneath.
Roughly, do you know the total amount of all the change order to this project?
The total change orders for this project, after the ones that we added, currently we're at $185,000. With this current one here, it puts us over the $200,000 threshold for the signing authority.
Thank you, sir.
Councilmember Larmer?
Actually, that was my question, is whether the threshold was met with the other one, so thank you.
Nate, are some of these funds coming from the capital budget?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
I'm usually the capital projects manager on the projects and don't do the funding for them, so I'm a little behind on that. So.
All good. Okay. Any other questions for Nate? Councilmember Boyd?
Yes, are we not looking at any other change orders? I mean, you think this would be the final change order that we'll have?
Correct. It's our anticipation this is the final change order for the project, being we're wrapping up in a couple of weeks here.
The final, okay.
This was a known change order from a while back. We knew we had to bring it to council, so it's been a waiting to get to today to be able to present it.
So you said you knew you had to bring this one to council. Did we have to bring all the other 5 to council too?
Oh, we did not. This was the first one that's put us over our signing
Oh,
threshold.
just, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Nate? Okay. I am going to read the motion. I move to authorize the mayor to sign change order number 6 with LBC Construction in the amount of $20,419.16, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney and parks director. Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, Nate, I just want to say the courtrooms look great, and I'm sure that the staff there really appreciate the upgrades, so thank you.
Do we vote? All in favor?
Not yet. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thanks. Back to you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember Michelle. Okay, we're gonna move on to public safety. Tara Duckworth, we're gonna talk about some cooperative purchase agreement.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Tara Duckworth. I'm the Deputy Director of IT. And today I have a motion memo for the purchase of 145 mobile data computers for our police department. There's currently a fleet of 145 mobile data computers that are at the end of their hardware life cycle. They need to be refreshed to reflect updated hardware, improve security, and improve performance. After a 4-month evaluation, the police department selected the Panasonic Toughbook devices. These MDCs will be purchased through Daytech Incorporated, and they're an authorized reseller partner from Panasonic. Once purchased, they'll be installed over the next 6 months and by the systems of public safety and our public workshops department. The laptops are portable, and they can be used both in the vehicle and on the desktop. This is a big change for a lot of our officers and reflects needed efficiency and work benefit to them to be able to port those devices around. There's also a savings of about 70 devices where the officers will not need to have 2 devices. This motion is also on the agenda for this meeting today, as well as the council meeting later tonight.
Okay, thank you. Any question for Tara, team? Tony Troutner.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said that this will be done over a period of time. Is it quick to install, or will there be downtime for officers? Because do they have to turn over their car to be able to provide
Their car
this?
will have to go in, they'll have to turn the car in, and I believe that's done on a cycle basis so that there's not downtime for the officers.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing, I'm gonna make a motion here. I move, and make sure, okay, yeah. I move to authorize the IT director to purchase computer equipment through a cooperative purchase agreement with Panasonic Connect North American through June 30th, 2025, or an extended contract term if those purchases are within the city established budget.
I second it.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show unanimous pass. Thank you, Tara. Okay, we have one more for public safety, and Sergeant Landon Meyer. Are you gonna give us some money, right?
Hello, council members. Thank you. I was here, I believe, at the last COW, and I introduced our pilot program with the department with Project Be Free, which is out there in the community trying to alleviate some of the underlying conditions of domestic violence and bring a bit of peace to members of our community who are suffering in that regard. So a little bit of an update. We did reach out to Association of Washington Cities. They were putting on a grant. We applied for it on behalf of Project Be Free. That grant was specifically designed, that we are being granted. That grant was designed to assist law enforcement in alternates to policing, so ways that we can still interact with the community and still engage in ways that are not necessarily traditional law enforcement roles, much like the pilot program that we are doing with Project Be Free. So in that regard, we did apply. The amount is for $205,000. It is a one-year grant, so we will manage it for 1 year. And that money is specifically earmarked to assist in some of the regular cost of running Project Be Free just for their Kent operation. One of the benefits of that is it assists us making sure that Project Be Free's operation in Kent will remain solvent and going, regardless of what happens to their other programs that they have outside of our city. The amount that Kent is using Project Be Free and the impact that we are seeing in the community is such that we are really passionate as a department in making sure that we are keeping this program alive and running well, even if it is just within our city, even though we are big believers that it is something that can impact the entire county, the state, and even later the nation. So with that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All righty. Well, thank you, Sergeant Meyer. Appreciate that. Always good news to get grants, and especially for domestic violence. So thank you for all your hard work. Appreciate that. Sure. With that said, Councilmember Lumber.
Yes, thank you. Very excited for this program. What happens a year from now? Is this a recurring grant from AWC, or will we have to figure out funding?
I do not know if it is a recurring grant off the top of my head. I would have to check on that. But this is just, again, I was kind of careful to really emphasize this is a partial funding thing. This is not designed to cover all of their costs, even just within the Kent program. But we do want to make sure that we are supporting efforts that they have so that they can make month to month instead of going out to the end of the year to show their work to be able to come back, and it helps with the overhead. I do believe that there will be more. I mean, we are not done applying for grants. We are preparing budget proposals for you people very nicely. Thank you. And so I don't anticipate that it's going to be the last. It is going to be something that's going to be a recurring amount. Whether or not we can continue to get it from them, that's still, I think, an open question. Mm-hmm.
Any other question, team? Seeing, I'm going to make a motion then. I move to accept the grant fund from the Association of Washington City in the amount of $205,000 for a domestic violence co-responder program. Amend the budget, authorize expenditure of grant funds, and authorize the mayor to sign a grant agreement, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the chief of police and the city attorney.
I second it.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, let the record show unanimous pass. And once again, Sergeant Meyer, thank you so much, sir. Keep up the hard work.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Okay, we're going to move on to Public Works. And with that said, I am going to call on to Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are going to hear from Christina Shook. It has been a long time since she has been here for Public Works, and she's going to talk to us about an ordinance authorizing a fiber franchise.
Thank you. It has been a while since I've been before you. My name is Christina Shook. I'm the Deputy City Attorney. And before you this afternoon, you have an ordinance which grants a franchise agreement with Ziply Fiber Pacific. So as many of you know, a franchise is a contract that authorizes the installation of facilities within the city's right-of-way. So electricity facilities, gas, telecommunications like fiber optics and small cells. And in this case, it's a fiber optic network that Ziply will be installing. So Ziply is registered in Washington. As part of its services, it will be offering high-speed internet to residents and businesses. Ziply representative was unable to attend tonight, but she did share and they have shared with us that it expects to start construction, assuming the franchise gets adopted in the fall and they get the permits, and then enabling service to start in early 2025. So Ziply is a local company. It has headquarters in Everett and Kirkland. It acquired some of Frontier's facilities, and it's also going to be building out its own network and infrastructure. It's expanding throughout Washington and already has franchises in a number of Washington cities, including some cities nearby like Renton, Bellevue, Issaquah, Sumner, Puyallup, and Tacoma. So this franchise agreement is for 10 years. It contains terms that cover the installation, repair, maintenance, and of Ziply's facilities, and then it also has terms that protect the city's infrastructure and rights of way. So for example, simply has to restore any pavement after installation. It has to keep records of its facilities, and then it has to relocate facilities if a public improvement comes through. The terms are very similar to the other fiber franchises that some of you have adopted in years past. So franchise approval is governed by state law, and which prohibits franchises from being adopted on the same night that they're considered. And so procedurally, you're going to see this on city council agendas twice. So you'll see it tonight on consent agenda for introduction, and then for adoption on August 6th. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from anyone? In that case, I move to introduce ordinance number 4496 at the July 16th, 2024 City Council meeting, which, if later adopted by council, will grant a non-exclusive 10-year franchise with Ziply Fiber Pacific LLC for the installation of a fiber optic network, subject to final franchise terms and conditions acceptable to the city attorney.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Discussion. There is none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And now David Payne is going to come, and he has two items for us. The Puget Sound Regional Council Equity Pilot Grant, and he's also going to talk to us about the transportation grants update.
Good afternoon, council members. David Payne, City Transportation Planner. Here to present on the Benson Corridor PSRC Equity Pilot Grant. So in 2023, the PSRC's Equity Advisory Committee convened to take a look at their scoring criteria to reconsider or recommend changes to their scoring criteria based on equity considerations and infusing more equity considerations into their existing criteria. And as part of that, the committee recommended two different potential scoring criteria. And then they took those two different scoring criteria out for a project call as PSRC would typically with any project call. This particular grant application we participated in submit two applications for the same grant, and then they evaluated which, based on the responses that they got, which criteria better reflected their intent, and therefore they recommended those changes to the scoring criteria that the region just now went through. So it's been a little bit delayed. We've been teasing this award, I think, to y'all for a couple of months now, but here we are to talk about the award. All of the applicants, I can say, across the region who participated in the pilot program were awarded, so we were happy to be among them. So what is the Benson Corridor Land Use Plan? And what is it going to allow us to do? So this is going to allow us to, first of all, it's going to be led by our brothers and sisters in ECD who participated in the grant application. And the land use scenario recommended in the plan is going to carry forward both of the recommended alternatives that are in the comprehensive plan now. So this is going to be a springboard off of the comprehensive plan, the conversations that are happening now, and it's going to allow us to do more engagement focused on the corridor, revise project lists, open up the transportation master plan, and have those focused conversations to help bring the vision, to set the vision and bring the vision forward for the corridor. So we're very excited about it. It's going to leverage the rapid ride investment. It's going to leverage the existing infrastructure and the existing community amenities you can see represented by the images on the right that are along the corridor. It's going to result in SEPA analysis, environmental analysis, zoning recommendations, and the engagement that I mentioned. So the recommendation is for a grant acceptance of up to $709,364,000.
Questions, comments? Be using an equity lens, so we're going to, I'm excited for the, see what the signs are that come out of the community engagement too, along with everything else. Anything else? In that case, I move to accept grant funds from the Puget Sound Regional Council Equity Pilot Program in the amount of $709,364 for completing the Benson Corridor Plan, amend the budget, authorize the expenditure of funds, and authorize the mayor to sign all necessary documents, subject to final terms and conditions acceptable to the Public Works Director and City Attorney.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Glad we'll be moving forward on that. And now you're going to talk to us about transportation grants.
Thank you, council members. And a simple or quick follow-up on that last item. The next is here from us. We'll be in the middle of next year. We'll be seeking to help us to advance that project, so we'll be involved in this. The next topic, on to the next round of grant applications. The summer update this year, we've got four potential grant applications coming up in the next month that we'd like to introduce. So the two grant application processes for grants applying for. The first is WashDOT's Section 130 Railroad Crossing Safety. So there's a project that we applied for 2 years ago at the intersection, or the crossing, Union Pacific Rail Line, Willis Street, and State Route 516 shown on the image on the right. So this would be as part of the quiet zone implementation, narrowing the cross guards. The crossing guards would be brought a little bit closer to the roadway, which allowed them to deploy a little bit quicker, and adding guardrails. So those are both part of a prior diagnostic that the city participated in, and they're necessary projects to move forward with the quiet zone there. So that would be the first project. That is the application, sorry, for the WashDOT Section 130. The second project is the first for the Transportation Improvement Board. This application, this is a project in the Transportation Master Plan and also in the Transportation Improvement Program for a roundabout at the intersection of Southeast 248th Street and 116th Avenue, right by the Puget Sound Regional Fire Headquarters. So this is one of the projects that we've been thinking about for quite some time. Perhaps some of y'all have also, I see some head nods, eagerly awaited to move forward on this one. So this would be for adding a single lane roundabout at the location and including a level of traffic stress 1 route. So what does that mean? For bicycles and active transportation east-west along the corridor, it could be shared use path, it could be protected bike lanes. Those are both in the concept that you see. And you see two concepts in the image at the right. Currently, we've got two different layouts that we're working through. The first would be a roundabout centered on the existing stop location. That would have perhaps potentially impacts to multiple quadrants. And then you see in the lower right-hand corner a skewed alignment for the roundabout, which would take the roundabout just slightly to the northwest. We're fortunate in this case that the city of Kent owns a little bit more property at the northwest quadrant, so that might be a little bit more friendly to impacts. Again, about 100-foot radius, single-lane roundabout with pedestrian amenities proposed. For the second application, this is the active transportation program category. This would be for connecting the sidewalk on 83rd Avenue, just west of East Valley Highway, and the interchange you can see with 167 in the lower right-hand corner. There's a sidewalk gap right in that section shown in orange, so this would close that sidewalk gap. And then the last project for Transportation Improvement Board this year is 132nd Avenue Southeast. 2-3 years ago now, we partnered with Metro to help design a sidewalk improvement to extend from roughly Southeast 276th Street down to 130th Avenue or East 278th Place. You can see by the orange dash lines on the left. So this would complete that sidewalk section. This would be independent of an RRFB crossing that is currently funded at the intersection with 130th and 132nd. So that's going to move forward regardless, but this would be in concert with that project, or they would build off of each other. And we're also investigating adding, you see the orange brackets all the way up to Kent Kangley. We're investigating some additional pavement improvements along the sections, and that would be replacement, repairs type improvements all the way up to Kent Kangley. And that would be under the Complete Streets program. And hopefully by this point, by that point, we would have perhaps a ribbon cutting for the 132nd section under construction further to the north. With that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments on these 4 grant applications.
Questions?
Thank you, Councilmember Fincher. My question is about this project that's currently up. So are you considering paving that entire, where you have the orange, yellow lines? Because some sections there is that like dirt path that's further back away from the road.
So it would be a combination. The sidewalk project would be new all-weather pavement, adding a sidewalk section to connect all the way down. But the roadway, we're going to review the pavement conditions. Some of the sections are smoother than others. Some of them have been revisited more recently than others. And so we're going to see if there's an opportunity to make some improvements as part of this contract, this project, this grant, to the road bed in somewhere between Kent Kangley and 130th.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Well, good luck. Fingers crossed.
Good luck to us all. Thank you.
Marley, Councilmember Lermer.
Thank you. I have a question on the roundabout. I can't tell from the visuals, what exactly is the advantage to bumping it up into that, what is that, the northwest corner?
So the advantage would be that there would be fewer owner stakeholders involved, with potential impacts to property. That would be the main advantage. Impacts. There might be other utilities, those kinds of things that we'd like to get into more detailed design.
I just want to say I'm in happy hands to even seeing those drawings, so we'll be getting this one. Thank you.
Did you say the city owns some of the land over there also? Yeah. Anything else to say? That was information only. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that is it for Public Works.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Payne. Appreciate that, sir. We are through with our committee as a whole, so we're going to break into 5:15. Thank you so much. Okay, we're gonna get started here. We have one item on our agenda today for our council workshop, and this is the 2044, man, that seems like a long way away. Comprehensive plan update, and Kristen, we're looking forward to your recommendation tonight. I know you did a lot of hard work, and we're excited to hear what you have to say. So I'm turning over to you. Thank you.
Thank you all. It's good to see you all today. I am excited to announce that as of yesterday at 5 p.m., the draft EIS closed for public comment.
Okay.
So you are getting literally hot off the press analysis. And tonight we're going to be discussing how we're moving from the 3 alternatives that we studied in the DEIS into a preferred growth alternative. So goals for the meeting, just a recap of what those 3 alternatives are, summarizing what we heard from the comments from the public, as well as some of our policy work that we've been doing through the broader engagement, reviewing a proposal for a draft preferred alternative, and then gathering your input. We are marching towards a deadline of needing plan adoption in December. And so with that, we are here in this process where we have done a lot of community engagement to inform to this point. Now it's putting the pieces together, and it's really putting the there in terms of the content for where we may be seeing land use and zoning changes, as well as how our goals and policies will be updated. So there's been a whole slew of work behind the scenes to get to this point that has been informed through your input, our boards and commissions, as well as the community. And so it's really exciting tonight to kind of bring something forward to you that then can actually be transformed. We're still in what we call the bubble map stage, where there's not parcel level detail, but hopefully the guidance we received tonight will help us bring it actually down to parcel level. So a quick reminder on our land use alternatives for study. We have 20-year growth targets for housing and jobs. We also have a new requirement by the state that we have to plan for housing affordability at all levels of income needs for housing. And so the summary, or if you take nothing away from this, alternative 2 and alternative 3, which are our 2 growth or action alternatives, growth or action alternatives, do actually meet the new housing need allocations that are the new requirement. So we do have those 3 alternatives for study. Alternative 1 was our no action alternative. At our last meeting together, you all confirmed that really this one isn't under consideration for further review because it doesn't meet our target requirements. And it also has some pretty serious implications that would put us at risk for grant and other funding. So that leaves us our 2 alternative requirements for growth strategies, and those are alternative 2 and 3. Up to this point, really, we've heard a lot of enthusiasm for both of these options. Tonight, I'm going to discuss some of the tweaks and adjustments that the community has really provided really thoughtful input on, as well as some of our partner agencies as we've gone through the environmental disclosure process and then through the broader conversations with the community at the International Festival and Cornucopia Days and Juneteenth, and then through playing Kent Quest at other locations. So alternative 1, we're going to skip through. This was really just as a reminder saying that we just take our 2015 comprehensive plan and move the dial another 9 years. Doesn't meet the requirements of what we need to do. And so we did get a confirmation that what we see as already planned growth areas along the West Hill to support light rail, downtown, and Industrial Valley are good, and generally the community is very excited about them. But there's a recognition of addressing and recognizing new and emerging needs in the community. So alternative 2, quick reminder, this one has greater growth intensities along Benson Corridor and Kent Canely. And that's at intensities of about 3 to 6 stories on those purple corridors, and then new neighborhood serving centers scattered throughout the East Hill. This one originally proposed all the way up along 132nd, several options, and then along 116th, and then out on Kent Canely. We're going to discuss some of the feedback that we've received from the community. And then alternative 3 is a new increase of development and opportunities along the Benson corridor and Kent Canely, but it doesn't have those commercial nodes in it. And so we heard, again, generally, overall, everyone that we've talked to has recognized Benson and Kent Canely are opportunities and should be focused on. Where we get into the details of that is a little bit more that we'll be talking about tonight. So this alternative 3 also really does double down on the idea of creating a downtown. And so it does allocate, instead of having a lot of the growth shift towards the East Hill, it does have a greater focus in downtown. And from a city perspective, in terms of applying for grants and strategies for focusing investments, that's just something to consider of there's been work started in downtown that I think still could be realized, and we're doing a downtown plan. And then there's also the Benson corridor, which is another great opportunity, and we're going to be doing a plan, as David talked about, to more set us up for more grant opportunities and redevelopment in the future. So our comment period for the DEIS did close yesterday. Oh, I'm sorry, that was a double click. And a quick reminder on the DEIS. So it really is not a, oh no, there's bad impacts, we can't do actions. It's more of a disclosure document to help us identify, both us and the public, to understand how a proposal may affect the environment, and then identify potential mitigation measures. So it describes existing conditions, a summary of our alternatives that were being studied, the compliance with different policies and regulations, and then identifying whether there's a significant impact and if it can be mitigated and what those measures should be. So again, for a non-project action, this is very different than if we're analyzing a bridge. It's looking at broad changes over time throughout the city. So we hosted a hearing through the Land Use and Planning Board. We had 3 people attend, but interestingly, no one wanted to provide public comment at that. And we kind of all stood there and stared at each other, kind of the Spider-Man, like pointing at each other, like, now's your time. But we did have some really good conversations outside of that meeting, not on the official record for a verbal comment. And then in terms of written comment, so if you recall, when we did the notice of determination for our scoping, we received 2 comments. One was from the city of Des Moines and one was from the Duwamish tribe. This was a significant increase, a 5-fold increase in responses. 4 community members provided written comments, and 6 agencies or tribes also did. And the agencies and tribes are listed below. Overall, again, there was great support for seeing some sort of alternative 2 or alternative 3 with different twists. And so we're going to get into some of the specific areas that people had comments on. I do want to point out, so Sue's Creek, Puget Sound Energy both had, and the Department of Ecology, their comments were more focused on, hey, we know you reached out to us and we've had these ongoing conversations. We have additional data we would like you to include as background information, but none of them really said we were missing gaps of analysis or needed to reanalyze anything. So from a project standpoint, that is great, because if we heard that there were massive holes in our analysis, that would lead to potential project delays, but really it was more of, here's some added context or updated information that we would like you to include. So again, this is the alternative 2 map, because this really shows the potential impacts throughout all of the locations. I'm going to walk through really quickly and just describe some of the comments that we received. So the first one, and this showed up in the EIS comments as well as resoundingly through the community conversations, is this site up north is too close to Sue's Creek. And so do not touch it. Do not add density. There were many reasons that the community cited for not thinking it made sense. Also, generally along this, there were a lot of conversations and concerns about, well, are you going to build out 1/32 wider? And what is that going to cost? And also a lot of concern that if we do too many commercial nodes, we're going to end up getting Benson Corridor 2.0. And is that really what the vision for the city is? And so because of that, staff, after further evaluation and really, I mean, we drove the area, we did a lot of mapping, we did a lot of further discussions. We do recommend that this site, number 1, fall off as not being a recommendation. So what you all, I'm going to give you kind of the long story short of what we're proposing here is remix or mishmash between alternatives 2 and alternatives 3, moving into our preferred alternative. And I'm going to tell you why we're suggesting or not suggesting certain areas. Alternative or dot number 2 was another one that, because of environmental quality, especially feeding into Lake Meridian and that basin, this area was one that was suggested to not be on the final map. No one came out strongly advocating that they would like to see it added or kept. And so based on the feedback that we've received, as well as some of the environmental concerns, removing the site was another suggestion. And then I keep saying alternative, dot number 3. This one was again one that early on we heard people say that they thought they wanted us to study. Once people saw it on a map, there was a little bit more hesitation around it, especially that area right there can be really difficult in terms of how it feeds into Covington. And while we don't necessarily think it's necessarily something that is bad situation, adding capacity at this time in terms of adding housing and jobs, and then the added infrastructure improvements didn't rise to the level that the community was asking for it at this point. So these are the 3 the community nodes that we are going to recommend removing going forward. I'm going to highlight a couple other ones for you. There is this, it's in Kent, but it also is shared by Renton. There's a shared intersection. Renton's comment wasn't in favor or opposed to any of the alternatives. It was just noting that, hey, we share this intersection. Can we work together? If you're doing something up there, we want to make sure we're working together, similar to the way we've worked with the city of Des Moines. And so, so that's just a note of that was Renton's comment. No changes are proposed in terms of increasing growth there. It was more of just for future consideration, they want to be in the loop. And then for dot number 5, that's at 116th and Kent Canely. And that we did receive from a property owner a letter specifically asking and wanting to see their property changing from residential only into a commercial or mixed use opportunity. This area was studied previously under a different property owner's proposal a couple of years ago, and the response was, let's come back to the comprehensive plan. Let's wait to evaluate it until we see it more holistically in the system. This is where Glint Car Wash and there used to be an academy, like a World Kids Academy type thing, and Sonic are all on those corners. So this site specifically, the property owners that wanted to see the change were north of 116th previously, north of the Sonic site, to my understanding. They were either north or northeast.
They were north and east.
And east. They were north and east. Thank you. So they were on this part of the intersection. The comments we got were from people closer to Benson this time, wanting to see that change. So different people asking for it. That party that originally had come in with that proposal did not provide comments during this round.
Like between Sonic and that street that turns into the neighborhood?
That would have been a previous proposal. So they did not provide comment at this time. So what we were hearing was from the northwest corner, property owner, right, near some of the vacant and abandoned buildings there.
I think when we were discussing that before, even that previous, we thought the area made sense with that specific proposal. There was something that made sense.
So I wasn't here for that time. I can't speak specifically, but I have looked in the files, and what I know, there were questions that were raised, and I know there were comments from our Land Use and Planning Board asking for more time to evaluate. And so the response then was, okay, we hear the need to evaluate this. Instead of making a decision on just a couple parcels, let's come back at the comprehensive plan time and discuss and evaluate it. I will say, based on our evaluation, it made sense when we looked at it, and especially when we looked at opportunity for some reinvestment in that area in terms of what the barriers were for seeing some turnover of vacant properties and some changes. We did hear also that community members have concerns along Kent Canely. So that is an ongoing conversation of Kent Canely is very busy. So it's a little bit of the kind of the choice of opportunities for redevelopment of underutilized and abandoned properties versus potential impacts, and how do we work through this plan to identify strategies for that. And so these were the main comments that we received. We did also receive some general comments, the Duwamish tribe, largely because of dots number 1 and 2 was in favor of alternative 3. WashDOT said they were in favor of alternative 3, but they basically said they support options that support transit. So both of these options do support transit. And then community groups did come out specifically saying they liked the commercial nodes, but again, these specific ones they wanted to see for various reasons not included. So I'm going to show you a map in a minute with the preferred alternative. It's probably not going to be shocking what it looks like. But I want to go over some of the elements that we are really focusing on and what shaped our decision making to get to this point to bring you something forward in the bubbly map form. Some of the major elements that we are considering is continuing to make sure we are following through with previous plans and commitments for visions for downtown, the Industrial Valley, and Midway, wanting to make sure that we're not detracting from those areas and that we are continuing to see investments happen as we previously anticipated. Recognizing changes that have happened, especially as Benson and Kent Canely areas and the community further east have been annexed into the city, and wanting to make sure that there's planning to recognize transit supportive uses there. Middle housing is allowed throughout all of these single family zones. Alternative 3 assumes some sort of uptake of a modest uptake of about 3% of the lots, utilizing a higher density. And then when you get closer, a quarter mile from future high capacity or existing high capacity transit stations, it would be up to 6 plexes. At this time, we felt like that was the most appropriate designation, as opposed to changing the diameter of proximity to transit, because we also have other plans in place, like thinking about the Benson corridor where there would naturally be up zones. And so we don't want to, and we would like to see near transit higher density where it makes sense and have a little bit more ability to direct that versus doing a blanket statement and upzoning everything to more units per lot. And then also recognizing and limiting the new neighborhood nodes in the East Hill locations. So this map probably does not look shocking to you all, but we want to discuss a little bit more of the details of it. So I did print it out in case you'd like to see it in front of you. Again, you can see we are responsive to, again, greater redevelopment in the Industrial Valley, downtown, Midway, where we've already anticipated it. And then this calls for modest growth along Benson Corridor and Kent Canely. And we have a couple questions tonight that we would like to talk to you about of what does that mean to you and what does your vision look like? The state continues to have conversations around transit supportive development as well. And so we have some recommendations for you at this time to talk about what we think would probably set the city up very well as the state continues to have requirements, so that we could have a functionally equivalent plan approved versus having the state provide a one-size-fits-all strategy for our community. And then again, recognizing the modest infill middle housing development across the entire city, so along East Hill and West Hill, where there's been traditionally our yellow SR, or single family residential zones. So for East Hill, we have these 3 neighborhoods. We would anticipate modest growth along the corridors, and really calling for higher intensity at specific intersections and not necessarily along the entire corridor. So the best way I like to think about this is this example here. This is a countywide designated center calling for a more compact community design. This area, the parcels are large enough so that we could actually see connecting trails between development and a unified pathway and opportunities to have an area that's more like a Kent Station design, because you can do that lot aggregation or have developers work together. When we're going along the roadway between these two, the parcels really don't lend themselves to that type of development, and so it'd be much harder to do that parcel aggregation and have more intense development that also meets aesthetic and other quality of life needs. And so thinking about things like where parking is placed, the green space or recreational amenities for residents, locating buildings to protect from sound and noise impacts, that's going to be much more difficult to do along the roadway parts as opposed to at key intersection locations. And so with that, we are calling for what we're calling modest development along the streets, and then when we get to key intersections, so Kent Canely and Canyon and Benson, 240th, and then I believe it's 208th, those would be the areas where more intense development would be seen. So all of this would be allowing mixed use, but at different intensities depending on whether you're at that core intersection or if you're along the route. So discussion in, oh yes, sorry.
So up on the east here, what I've seen on the left-hand side here, so that's what we're going to see, the growth, the modest growth is up and down Benson, is what we're talking about here?
Yes. Here and here. Okay. And I do have some late breaking updates to the map that you all have. One of the things that we were looking at when we were looking at existing zoning and what's there, really once you get past 132nd and go east, the likelihood for redevelopment in that area is pretty limited. There's already a lot of apartments and a lot of commercial uses. Really, the potential area is between 116th to 132nd. There's some rather large lots that are single family right now that could be redeveloped. I like to think of it as we could have a lot of driveways all really close to each other, which Chad would probably cry about, or we can think about ways to incentivize aggregating lots, getting different product types and different housing types, and also limiting entry points onto Kent Canely so that we're not having a bunch of people backing onto Kent Canely, which is, I think every time I've driven it, I experience 2 or 3 cars doing it. So again, this won't necessarily guarantee that fix, but it would provide, again, the tools that we have as a city to incentivize other types of housing and have a better overall site design for that purpose.
Could we not mandate that for safety reasons, though? Isn't there, I mean, we were talking about incentivizing it, but could we not make that a design requirement for safety?
So we definitely can make it a design requirement. What we can't do is make them redevelop. And so if they're right now zoned for single family units and they can maybe get 4 new units on it, versus if we change and allow mixed use or some higher densities here, the likelihood that they will redevelop and then we can actually have that requirement come in place is much greater. So it's not necessarily, we would make it a requirement. I'm assuming we've done that before in many cases of identifying where the access points make sense. But unless they redevelop, we don't have the opportunity to require it.
Okay.
Before we go, great presentation. I mean, really, you're pretty good at what you do, right? So you make our job a little easier too, right? So I appreciate all the effort and energy that you and the team have put in this year. So let's take some questions here. And Tony, please.
So looking like down the Benson, so you've got that bigger circle there for Kingley. And then as you move north, what do those 2 areas, what do you envision or what do you see for that? The circles aren't as big, and obviously that the intersections aren't quite as big, but there's a lot of potential for improvements.
Right. So this is where we wanted to come to you all for some questions. And so for sure, we've heard from the community time and time again, like that area that's further south that meets Kent Canely is ripe for, people call it like Kent Station 2.0 or the East Hill version of a Kent Station opportunity, but some sort of development that could be more integrated. The other parcels up north also could support more mixed use further out into that intersection, but maybe not, or into the intersection. So it may not be the immediate parcels that could go back a little bit. Whereas when we're talking about let's see if I can do this. When we're talking about the road pieces, we wouldn't necessarily envision changes beyond what's immediately touching the road. Going out, we wouldn't say, oh, for a quarter mile, we would see something. And so the Kent Canely, the southern location, Kent Canely and Benson, this one may extend further out than these other two locations purely because of available land and likelihood for redevelopment. So all of them mixed use opportunities to a greater extent than the corridor itself, but the southern anchor would be much more potential.
Could you, just to make sure we all tracking what you said, tell us your recommendation one more time? Just kind of go through that, please, just to make sure.
Yes.
Please.
So, and that's a great transition. So I do have 4 questions for you all. First is just what are your impressions? And then we dive into, let's talk about Benson more specifically, Kent Canely, and then those commercial areas. I am assuming because the state law is requiring middle housing that we're not going to do much to say no to that, and that we will, through our code implementation, have opportunities to actually talk about ways to incentivize it and in certain areas or focus opportunities where it may make the most sense. That's kind of part 2 of the code, but I'm assuming that the middle housing writ large, we don't have significant heartburn over changing or fighting the state and being out of compliance. Okay.
That's an accurate statement.
Okay, great. So summarizing again, we are emphasizing our pre-planned growth areas. So what we've done for Midway with light rail support, Meeker into downtown and the Industrial Valley. So still calling for, especially in downtown and the Industrial Valley, greater intensities than what we've seen realized right now, recognizing that there's a lot of potential for jobs and housing. And then adding along the corridor from Canyon up through Kent Canely to 132nd. So let's cut off this part here. From 132nd over, seeing opportunities for mixed use along that corridor for the parcels that are immediately touching. So not necessarily back 4 or 5 into the existing neighborhoods, but the ones that are along that corridor already. And same thing with Benson, 104th, 108th. And then at these key intersections, we would see more, it would go beyond just the 4 corners, but deeper into those areas and then taper down into the neighborhoods. And then these are commercial areas that we would identify. One is southwest of Clark Lake Park, near where the training center is. And then the other is northeast of Clark Lake Park, where QFC is. And then the one at 116th. Those are commercial nodes that either exist but have limited footprints that we think could be expanded, or they have a mishmash of there's some commercial and some single family or lower density residential that we think really making those more of a commercial serving node would make sense for the community to be able to walk to get community services and neighborhood commercial uses.
So I'll jump in. So I said I'll jump in.
Oh, sure.
So I like the ideas of taking some of the nodes away, so it's good to see that. So like looking in particular at and thinking of 116th and Kent Canely, I think there's a lot of potential there. And we've seen, we've got the gas station and I'm thinking on like the southeast side. You've got something there, but there is a corner at least that doesn't have any, huh? No. I'm talking Kent Canely and 116th.
He's talking about the dilapidated building.
Yes, on that one corner. Yes, so there's a lot of potential for making improvements, especially in that area. Also, going down the Benson, like I mentioned, making improvements, especially on Benson and 240th. And I know we can't force businesses to do things differently, but I feel like there's a lot of potential for improvements there. There are some buildings that are unoccupied. And then I don't know about like 208 because you have the school there and you already have things, but I think there's possible potential going outward, like you mentioned, because there's a lot going on now on 208 as you go down the hill.
Right.
So I don't know if that helps.
please, yeah.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I agree with everything that Councilmember Troutner said, and then I said from the beginning we should remove those nodes, so yay. I agreed with the community. I do have questions about the 248th and 116th. I'm kind of wondering what my fellow council members feel about that. There's not a, I don't know. Kind of 248th and 116th, where the fire station is, and we're talking about putting in a roundabout someday. I don't feel great about that, but I'd like to hear what others have to say about it.
What suggestions did you receive when you were doing these groups? What did people see there in the community?
Yeah, I think one thing is people felt like there was just, it felt like a natural place where people could find something there. There's already non-permitted uses that are popping up that are very popular with the community. So finding opportunities, especially, there was no discussion of removing the training center or anything like that. But on the north, so just south of the training center along 248th, there are some larger pieces of land there, as well as on the kitty corner side, which if we're doing a roundabout will end up not being a kitty corner, but the southeast side, there's a lot of larger lots there that have remained largely in a rural state, that people are recognizing there may be some opportunity to put in some, again, neighborhood serving commercial uses. So things like a small coffee shop, a small little bodega grocery store, things that would not necessarily, we're not talking about a CVS or Walgreens or something that would have a lot of parking requirements to it. More of like something as you're on your way to or from home or school or work that you could see something, pick up something there, or you could walk down the street to grab something or bike, or there's a lot of improvements that Public Works is making along that area as well. But that was the idea, was that some of the uses there seem not well utilized, or some of the land seems not well utilized compared to the needs and the changes that have happened around the community, where those areas are still not seeing as much intensity.
I kind of want to show you, my thoughts around the 240, 116. I mean, certain time of the day, that's like, I don't know what the accident rates at that particular area, but it just, you go there, people just very impatient. You got people going and jerking, and it just, to me, is unsafe. I don't know, we got data on just the accident around that area, but to me, I think that'll be something that help the traffic move a lot smoother in that particular area.
And so this is the location that we're talking about right now, just in case people weren't tracking that first part of the conversation. Okay.
Any other thoughts, Councilmember Fincher? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I like the idea of the roundabout. I'm surprised it's a one lane, because I was thinking I've seen a lot of traffic there too, especially like you can imagine school time, event times, church times. And there's always something, seems like, that's being sold there near that corner. So I can also see having a bodega or something there. So I think that's good. So I'm fine with the nodes and those changes. I'd be interested, though, and my neighbor here might want to answer after his questions, but to hear what the thoughts were and comments they had on the West Hill area.
Yeah. I'm happy. Did you want to chime in now, or same question?
It was similar to her question. Well, my first question was, when you go to bed at night, do you dream about Comp Plan 2044?
I would like to say no,
Oh, you
but
don't?
yes, I do some of my best ideas in the middle of the night. So some of this was like, how do I integrate this? Here's how I'm thinking. So yeah, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know.
Okay.
It's unpaid time, so it's good for you all.
Yes, it is. and my next question is, do you coordinate with light rail, like say, for instance, around the West Hill area, do you coordinate with them, asking them how many jobs would be available in that time span, and how many riders would they be having in that time span? So, I mean, I'm asking that to say, does that give you some type of idea of how many housing and what type of housing to put in those areas?
So this is a little bit of chicken egg situation. So the short answer is yes, we do. What we did as a city is we planned for the light rail area in the early 2010 timeframe. And we worked closely with Sound Transit at that time. Well, even before then, we were thinking about what the community needs were, what the land use around those stations should be to support housing and jobs and economic opportunity, because a lot of times people may be driving in, so thinking about the parking stations as well, and then what do you need if you park there and you're hanging out? Do you need coffee? Do you need, other amenities? And so we did a lot of that work. I did not do any of it. I was not here at that time. But our previous planning efforts and Public Works worked really closely, and we do track the projections with that, with ridership as well as parking needs, as well as housing. And so you're not seeing a lot of that reflected as new in this plan, because we put those planning pieces in place and they're becoming realized now. So as Sound Transit is locating, we are starting to see the market around light rail come into compliance, redevelop with the plans that we put in place for that. So we have coordinated that. And that's why it doesn't seem new and exciting, because it's an effort that council and the city have worked on over several years. And we heard really loudly from the community that the plans that are in place and the visions for that, they want to see more of that. And it's really at this point waiting on the market to respond to it. Or Sound Transit has some parcels that are being used for other purposes. And so once those become available, they'll redevelop as well.
Okay, that sounds good. Brenda?
No, she can answer the rest of mine. I want to hear the comments about as well, because we do have the light rail coming, and there's the big chunk where we know there's going to be mixed use.
Right.
We know there's commercial, so I just wanted to hear that.
Right. So specifically for Midway, we still anticipate some of that commercial manufacturing staying. That's that orange area between the north and south part of Midway. Those are longstanding businesses, and seeing those sites redevelop, some of them have very old sites that may have other cleanup issues and other things. And so we do need those businesses and uses in our community. And so there was no intent to change that through this planning effort. More broadly for the West Hill, we did have a lot of conversations with the neighbors, and really there wasn't a huge outcrying of anger around seeing middle housing coming in. They said, it kind of makes sense. We're so close to light rail. It'll be nice to have that access. I understand it. Where we did hear when we had early round one conversations of, well, what if we added more mixed use or apartments along Military or some of the other areas? There was a lot of concern about the already people will be coming from the middle of the city, East Hill, through that area, and that there was concern about adding more growth into that area when really there may not be actual capacity on infrastructure for it. And so really the strategy for the West Hill is middle housing opportunities, which also provide home ownership opportunities next to light rail, which is a very difficult thing to achieve otherwise. So.
Okay, and I'm thinking specifically, and I'm wondering, would businesses, those older businesses that you mentioned, would they basically be grandfathered in, or would they be required to make changes? Right.
They're already part of the plan. So, there may be existing non-conforming uses. We're not intending to go after them or change them at all. They can continue operations as usual, because we're not changing that plan for this area. So no, we don't anticipate impacts to businesses from this comprehensive plan effort as it relates to the Midway area.
Good, thank you.
So I think that was the only one. So yeah, great job. I'm not surprised to see those nodes come off. I'm a little disappointed about the Panther Lake one. I agree that's not the right location, but there's just kind of a lack of amenities and stuff up in that area. So I really like the idea of what Renton was talking about. I think that one intersection is just ripe for development. So, even if it's not on our plan, our comprehensive plan, I'd like to see us, partner with them and figure out, how that can be built out.
Okay, so
I think there is just more need for amenities and stuff for the residents up in that northern quadrant.
Great point. So that area does allow commercial already. What I would envision, we didn't necessarily call it out as a larger area, but when we're doing the Benson corridor plan, we can reevaluate, are there other intersections that make sense for having more of this? So that area already does allow commercial, but I think what that looks like and whether it's maybe not working as intended, and are there things that we as a city can do to help sway that, is something we can definitely include in the Benson plan. It's not precluding it from here. It just wasn't specifically called out. And Renton, it is, I mean, you know this area well, but that northern part of Benson is very different than the southern part of Benson. And so really wanting to pay attention to the community's context in those areas and what their goals are. We're hearing different things in those neighborhoods, and so through the Benson plan, we plan on doing a lot more specificity around that, including around design and other strategies. Thank you. That's a great point. Okay, so we went through first impressions. I'm going to ask a little bit more. So our initial recommendation along the Benson corridor, the roadway itself, we're thinking 3 to 4 stories. So that would be mostly townhouse type development, which is really what the market is yielding right now for this area. It would be hard for us to realize garden style or platform style departments along the road itself. And those also could come, so the benefit of doing townhomes also yields ownership opportunities within them, which is one of our highest needs for housing that we have very little tools to actually move the needle on. And so creating ownership opportunities was one of the ideas that we had along this corridor. And then in the bigger circles, thinking about 6 stories, which then would develop the potential for higher development. And really what we're looking for here is we're trying to weave the needle. So the state keeps coming up with ideas of what they think transit supportive uses are. And what we are finding more and more is one size fits all. Doing this as an entire canyon probably won't yield the results we want or give us the opportunities for more specific recreational spaces and connectivity and thinking about integrated multimodal use. And so by doing this in the core intersections and then having the corridor really more realistic to what the market can support, we think this will yield a different and a more responsive result. So question here is, does this level of development seem right? It is a mixture between what Alternative 2 and Alternative 3 are calling for. And we think we don't know where the state's going to go next year with legislative session, but it is a significant change that we think we can justify and say we've done planning and concerted efforts with the community to validate that this is what the needs are.
I would say yes. One of the things, I know the state have not been friendly regarding condominium, but that's something that could be part of this here access here in this little corridor area you're talking about.
Yes, so condominiums at the state level, or in Washington state, condominiums are very difficult. The benefit of townhomes is you can actually do something called a unit lot subdivision. And so even if you have a 200 unit townhome development, you can divide it into separate lots, which means you get around the condominium requirements. And so really townhomes are an excellent option for that product type for that reason. Whereas it's still with a traditional apartments where there may be a shared corridor entry, you're still stuck with the condominium requirement. So that gets into barriers for homeownership. I think we keep chipping away at it at the state legislature, and the state legislature tries every year to do slight tweaks, but nothing is moving the needle substantially. So we're trying to identify opportunities while also increasing proximity to transit here.
To answer that question, I would say yes. That'd be a nice transition, right? I can visualize that, and that would be pretty cool. Yeah.
I was going to say I support it too. And you're talking about key intersections, but you're also, your circle expands beyond to, down the road a little bit.
each way.
Yeah, an example. So I think this is the most clear example. Canyon, Kent Canely, and 256th and 104th here. This would not just be that meeting point with the triangle that's really difficult. It could extend into what we like to call the top food site, and some of the parcels that are all around that next to the high school. A little bit further north. So it would be a more extensive, I'm calling them these key intersections, but we like to think of it a little bit as like kind of a wedding cake or a tiered approach where there could be more development around as it eases into the other neighborhoods.
And I think that makes perfect sense. So I support that.
Kristen is thinking mixed use, but also home ownership. So if there were a group of townhomes and they put a business not in the townhome, but in that little small community, would that still meet the requirements of mixed use?
Yeah, so this is a question I think we're going to want to dig into more of. Traditionally, we have said mixed use has to include ground floor non-residential on the bottom with residential up top. That model is desired, but the market does not always provide it. And with commercial affordability challenges and a post-COVID world, it's becoming increasingly more difficult. The new conversations that are happening in my world when I'm not dreaming are thinking of live-work lofts where an accountant may have something on the ground floor that they use as their office space and then their family lives above it, or having mixed use, as you're saying, where the buildings may be separate, but they're developed as one parcel. And so there could be spaces for a daycare and a coffee shop and a hair salon with townhomes behind it or some configuration. And so that's something that right now we're just calling it mixed use or a mix of uses. We will want to talk to you all when we get into actual policy and then code writing of what do you want to see in this area? Do these other flexible options make sense? From an economic and planning standpoint, we would say we're not getting the results we want currently in our mixed use neighborhood commercial and general commercial zone. So the flexibility and the creativity are something that we've, as a city, I see policies going back many comp plans for. So coming to you with some of those options of which ones do you think make sense? So that's an excellent point.
I know we have apartments coming in on West Hill, so not only on Benson would it be nice to be able to have more opportunities for the home ownership, but also on West Hill, and both of those that you mentioned would be great options to be able to increase that home ownership.
You okay if I move on to?
Yes.
Okay, so same question, just question 3. Again, with the caveat, these maps, again, presentation was made yesterday, comments closed at 5 p.m., removing this stretch from any changes in zoning. So really stopping at 132nd and then going up through connecting to downtown. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I'm seeing head nods. And then final are the commercial nodes. So I circled in a bolder line the proposed commercial nodes, and then you can see the lighter, less bold are the ones that we removed. Wanted to put it all out there. If there's a strong desire to see one of or any of them added back in, putting that on the table, as well as then saying any ideas, thoughts, or anticipated challenges with these locations. I know some have already been addressed. We can add that into the section of the notes, but anything else?
Councilman Shaw have already spoken to those.
You're allowed to speak again. Don't listen to him.
Go ahead, Molly.
My comment on the one at 256 and 132nd, or is that 116? I'm sorry.
This one?
No, the one that was removed.
Oh, this is 256.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the few places we have large parcels. Needs to correct. I'm thinking right. Intersection. Yeah.
So.
There's nothing there as well. Yeah, so those are like large parcels. Is there any, would there be any kind of commercial development that wouldn't risk the environmental impacts to the lake?
We could do some research on that if we could narrow the scope of that some. if that's something other people would like us to look into.
On the east, 250 is all wetland. On the east side, 250
So-
is wetland, right? And then I know on the northeast side, we do have that housing area, but I think there's a corner up there. What is that? Oh, on that side there.
And I believe one of the corners when we looked may actually be a detention pond. So I'll have to go back and look at that, which limited our ability because the southeast corner is really difficult with environmental concerns into Lake Meridian. So the closer to Lake Meridian area, this area is difficult with concerns about impacts to the lake. And then I thought it was this one over here has some sort of detention and other restrictions on it when we were looking more detailed. So I'll look into
On
it
the
more.
west side, I think there's some opportunity. It could be on that west side.
I'll come back and look at it. Okay. There may be some development underway or coming soon too. Okay. Any other comments on these commercial areas?
Councilmember, we good?
These are all subject to change too, right?
I would say subject to change in that we are going to take what I like to call this bubbly map and put it down to a parcel level for your final review and sign off. We don't have enough time in the project schedule to do a lot of reiterations of this, and part of that is we front loaded a lot of time with the community engagement process so that by the time it got to you all, you had a pretty good grasp on what we were hearing from the community as opposed to putting something out there and then hearing.
We don't want to go against the community after input.
So with that, just a couple comments and changes or updates. So we will be at Kent Quest at Airways Tap Room and Brewery in the Industrial Valley this Thursday. So doing one final conversation around this. And really this is going to it also informs our goals and policies. So we are going to also extend our online survey, which focuses on the policy side of things, not the environmental analysis, through Monday to give those that we caught at Cornucopia Days and people that we talked to at Airways a little bit more time to log in to help shape our goals and policies around how we're doing our updates. And then we as a project team will be working to refine this for actual land use and zoning suggestions. We would like to come back to you August 20th. We have time on your calendars to confirm this so that we can move forward into the final draft of the comprehensive plan. In between now and then, we're also working on all these elements that we have almost drafted, but we need to put pieces in. So we'll be coming to you with different topics as well based on your previous input on the ones that were most important and that we anticipated the most changes. October 11th will be the draft comprehensive plan will be released publicly. And then December 10th is your last meeting. And so if we don't adopt the comprehensive plan or have action before then, that would be the date that we would be aiming for.
Question. This past weekend, did you get a lot of people who stopped to do their dots on
We did.
the little stickers on the board?
We did. I have some good tallies for that, but we want to include the last event for this last Kent Quest event. So we'll come back with a little summary of what we received. But I think this year we had a lot more people stop by, and I think some of that was a spinny wheel for a prize wheel is a huge incentive to get the kids to beeline to you, and then you get to talk to the adults they're with, and sometimes the teens will, sometimes the teens will jump in as well.
So is this on your website? Are people going to go take a look at it?
It is. All of this is on our website, minus the preferred alternative, because we just finished that today. Once we are moving towards kind of finalizing it, we'll be putting that on the website as well.
So one more quick question. You talked about, like, we'll dive deeper into, like, the parcels and that piece of it. Is that, so then when we take a look at those circles, we'll have a better idea of how far we would like to expand?
Yes.
Okay,
So staff are going to be doing between now and then the parcel level analysis of, we think it makes sense to go out this far in this area. And it may not be one size fits all, right? It may look a little bit like a blob where this area has potential, but this area is right up against a wetland, so it's not going to go as far. Thank you. Great.
Any more questions for our subject matter expert, Kristen? Excellent job.
All right,
you so
thank
much.
you all.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.
Okay, team, we are going to adjourn for lunch. Thank you. Resume at 7 o'clock.